Welcome to your Tokyo Market Dispatch for August 28, 2026. We are jumping right into a dynamic session today, one totally defined by aggressive governance unwinds and some serious yield curve steepening for global allocators.
Taking a look at today's closing snapshot, we saw a really solid, broad-based equity advance. The Nikkei 225 closed up 0.41% at 66,405. But what's really catching our eye here is the Topix outperformance. It gained 0.72% to close at 4,146. This actually drove a contraction in the NT ratio, that's the Nikkei to Topix spread, pushing it down to 16.01. Basically, this is a clear signal that cyclical value and large-cap financials are outpacing pure tech momentum right now. Over in FX, the US dollar to yen cross is staying in a tight consolidation, hovering right around 159.52 ahead of Jackson Hole. For Japanese exporters, holding this level is fantastic. It provides highly favorable translation margins, sitting comfortably above that conservative 145 yen baseline most of these firms have baked into their corporate budgets.
Over in the bond market, the benchmark 10-year Japanese government bond yield crept up 3 basis points to 2.930%. And this brilliantly illustrates the macro transmission mechanics we're dealing with today. We had Bank of Japan Deputy Governor Himino out there advocating for timely policy normalization, and that hawkish rhetoric was heavily backed up by the data. Tokyo core CPI just accelerated to a 5-month high, and nationwide unemployment dropped to a super tight 2.4%. This persistent labor tightness is exactly what's driving the structural steepening of the sovereign yield curve. So, as Japanese yields grind higher, while US Treasuries are starting to price in rate cuts, global allocators absolutely must keep a close watch on this narrowing US-Japan bond yield spread and what it means for capital repatriation.
So how did this macro setup actually dictate today's sector flows? Well, that steepening yield curve channeled some very aggressive institutional bids straight into the megabanks. Names like Mitsubishi UFJ and Sumitomo Mitsui caught a strong tailwind as investors price in further net interest margin expansion. At the same time, we saw tech beta recovering in the semiconductor supply chain. Upstream heavyweights like Advantest and Tokyo Electron spearheaded the gains here, riding a direct wave from the latest NVIDIA forward guidance and structurally resilient hyperscaler compute demand. And you can't ignore the Sogo Shosha today. Trading houses, specifically Itochu and Mitsubishi, showed some serious capital allocation momentum, pushing higher on strategic M&A deployment and expanding their merchant cash generation.
Now, shifting gears to corporate governance, today's critical catalyst revolves around one massive number, 250 billion yen. That is the estimated valuation of the Dentsu Soken privatization led by Dentsu and Itochu. Make no mistake, this is a monumental Tokyo Stock Exchange governance catalyst. It perfectly highlights this accelerating institutional push we're seeing to unwind inefficient oyako jojo, or parent-child dual listings. Wiping out these dual listings removes long-standing conflicts of interest, but more importantly, it perfectly aligns with the exchange's aggressive mandates for capital efficiency. It is a huge step in the market-wide push to achieve price-to-book ratios well above that 1.0 mark.
Let's wrap things up with our strategic forward look. If you're allocating globally, you need to monitor two critical catalysts heading into the next session. First up is Fed Chair Kevin Warsh's policy speech at Jackson Hole. That is going to be absolutely vital for forward sovereign yield spread guidance and cross-border currency implications. Second, keep an eye on the August 31st month-end Topix rebalancing and constituent reshuffles. As we head into these major macro events, the big question hanging over everything remains. Is the BOJ normalizing too quickly, or are global markets simply mispricing Japanese resilience? That wraps up today's Tokyo Market Dispatch. For daily institutional intelligence on Japanese equities and BOJ policy, subscribe now. See you tomorrow at market close.